Hello everyone and welcome to Abu Dhabi. I had just arrived from Rome and had a few hours to kill before catching my flight to Sydney. I don't know if it's just me, but I found the airport in Abu Dhabi a little disappointing. I walked around quite a bit, but there was nothing much to do or see, so I ended up spending most of my time in the lounge. When I first arrived, the lounge was empty, but it was absolutely packed an hour or two later. There was a cool bar area and multiple food stations, which was good considering just how big the lounge was and how many people there were. I made my way to the gate and saw the plane that would be taking us to Sydney, a Boeing 777-300ER in a two-class configuration. The gate area also had a two-class configuration, with a dedicated seating area for priority boarding. I awkwardly sat on show for a bit before being invited to board. This 777 had 40 business class seats in a 1-2-1 layout. There was a larger front cabin between doors 1 and 2, and a smaller mini cabin of just 3 rows behind door 2. As you can see, the seats alternate in position, with some being closer to the aisle and others being away from the aisle. My seat for this flight was 14A, the last row in the smaller rear section. This was a proper window seat, with the seat being closer to the window rather than next to the aisle. I would strongly recommend these over the seats closer to the aisle, as those lack privacy in comparison. Having a look at the seat. There's a side console with some lighting and storage nooks and crannies. Below that was an armrest, seat controls, IFE remote and more storage. Towards the front of the seat was power, the table, and of course, the footrest and IFE screen. You can probably tell, but this is an older style of seat, and it definitely looks and feels outdated compared to their other offerings on different aircraft. The footrest was kinda narrow, but it wasn't completely boxed in, which was good. I went for something a bit different and tried the lemon and mint drink. Like I said in my previous Etihad video, their eBox IFE system is very good, but on this 777, my remote was very clunky and pretty much unusable, so I had to lean forward and use it as a touchscreen. After takeoff, I was given some nuts. Everyone else in the cabin also got a drink, but for some reason I didn't get mine. For starter, I had the Arabic meze, because apparently that's the right thing to do according to YouTube. Honestly, I'm not really a meze fan, but me being me, I ate pretty much all of it anyway. For main, I had beef tenderloin, with potato, beans and peppercorn sauce. The beef looked a bit brown, but it was actually nice and tender, great taste and flavour. For dessert, I had a mango brioche pudding and ice cream. The pudding was right up my alley, but strawberry ice cream isn't my thing. Unfortunately, they didn't tell me what flavour they had until they served it. With dinner done, it was time to sleep. This is what the seat looks like in a partially reclined setting, for relaxing or watching movies. To convert it into a bed, you just hold down the button until the seat goes completely flat. It's pretty standard by business class standards, nothing revolutionary here, but I did like the extra little bit of space between the seat and the fuselage, which helped add a tiny bit more width to the bed. Just like on the Dreamliner, there was no mattress topper for this seat either. My bed had okay privacy, but I would avoid the seats close to the aisle unless you really want to be able to just roll out of bed into the aisle. I slept for almost 7 hours and we were well into Australia by the time I woke up. Given the timing of the flight, it didn't make sense to have breakfast as a pre-landing meal. So, instead, I chose the steak sandwich and some cookies from the all-day menu. For a sandwich on a plane, this looked really good, and thankfully, it tasted great as well. In combination with my Etihad Dreamliner flight, I've got to say, I was impressed by the catering. Apart from being served on a tray, most of the food was visually appealing, and tasted great, to me at least. No doubt, a combination of good preparation on the ground, but also the crew doing a great job on board putting these meals together. I turned on the camera and we got my favourite approach into Sydney, right past the city. The weather wasn't great, but if you're ever flying into Sydney, I'd recommend sitting on the A side of the plane just in case you get views like this. So, what did I think of Etihad's 777? Well, the seat was an older style and it felt it too. Just like the 787, make sure you choose your seat ahead of time so you don't end up in a less desirable position. The service on this flight wasn't quite as good, but it was still fine considering a full cabin. Food was great, and I slept for almost half the flight, so clearly the bed works. Overall, a good flight, but I'm keen to see the A380 return to Sydney.